I think this all happened because, like, when I got with my girl and started building a family, I ain't really have time to kick it with the homies.
I did a lot of work on you in this place. That there are two ways to leave here, either through the door with the deal sign or through this window, and we're on the 29th floor.
So they want you to believe some random woman rides by Rihanna's house and up the place? Stop it, stay woke. It's giving another Flop Nation production.
Michael, and there are several bullet holes left behind from this extremely alarming crime. We're told Rihanna was at home when a suspect repeatedly opened fire right outside her front gate.
Things are getting very scary because people have now put together that both Rihanna and Nicki Minaj's homes in California have both been targeted recently. Because we just learned today that a 30-year-old woman let off 10 rounds at Rihanna's home while she was there. In California, by the way. So people are now bringing up Nicki Minaj's home that also so happens to be in California was targeted on 3 separate occasions, and the caller happened to be a woman.
Suspect was a 2023 to 2024 Tesla 4-door with a paper license plate.
This was never meant to reach the public. For days, the noise disappeared. No press releases, no social media activity, no public appearances. Just a chilling, unnatural silence, lingering after bullets ripped through one of the most heavily guarded estates in Los Angeles. People assumed the story had ended there. It hadn't. Because now, for the first time, Rihanna and ASAP Rocky are rumored to have finally broken that silence, and what's being said behind closed doors is shaking the entire industry. This wasn't some obsessed fan. This wasn't or chance. This was orchestrated. Multiple rounds fired. A weapon built for precision. A suspect who crossed state lines, arrived in disguise, and didn't hesitate because they already knew exactly where to strike. And here's the detail that's unsettling everyone: Rihanna and Rocky weren't even inside the main mansion. They were in a separate trailer, yet somehow, that's exactly where the shots landed. Think about that. How do you bypass the mansion, but still locate them perfectly? And then everything takes a darker turn. A record-setting veil, quietly reduced overnight. No new developments. No public reaction. No outrage. Just silence. Again. Now line that up with what's quietly unfolding in the background: old files resurfacing, influential names being re-examined, and growing whispers that Rihanna may be holding onto far more than she's ever revealed. And suddenly, this doesn't feel like an attack that failed. It feels like a message that landed. Because when Rihanna reportedly says, "We were inside," she's not just stating a fact. She's exposing something deeper. She's telling you, they were the intended target. And if that's the truth, then the real mystery isn't who fired the shots. It's who gave the order.
The most famous person you've been with? Can I ask that?
Yeah, but you have to mute it.
The quiet didn't hold. For days after the gunfire, there was nothing but a void. No interviews, no official words, just a sealed-off estate, questions hanging in the air, and a version of events that never quite added up. The headlines came and went: disturbed fan. They said packaged, simplified, and pushed out of sight. But beneath that silence, something was taking shape. Because now, through emerging reports and alleged insider leaks, Rihanna and ASAP Rocky are said to have finally broken that silence, and what's being hinted at turns the entire narrative on its head. Not random, not mistaken, calculated. March 8th, 2026. Beverly Hills. Late afternoon slipping into evening. Inside the property, everything felt normal. Rihanna with her children. Family nearby. Staff moving quietly. Rocky shifting between spaces. But not inside the main house. That detail changes everything. They were inside a silver Airstream trailer parked out front, not the mansion. Not the obvious focal point. Not where anyone would expect them to be. And then, without warning, the gunfire erupted. Shot after shot. More than 10 rounds unleashed from what's described as an AR-15 style rifle. The front gate splintered. Exterior walls struck. The driveway torn through. But here's where it stops making sense. The shots weren't random. They were controlled, intentional, aimed directly at the exact spot where Rihanna and Rocky were positioned in that moment. According to what they allegedly shared, the realization didn't come instantly. It crept in seconds later, after the echo faded, after the dust settled, after they stepped out and saw where the bullets had landed. Not the mansion, the trailer. "We were inside," Rihanna reportedly said. And in that silence that followed, everything shifted. Because if that's true, then this wasn't guesswork. This was precision. Law enforcement responded fast. Within 30 minutes, the suspect, identified as Ivana Ortiz, was found at a shopping center miles away. Composed, unshaken, no urgency to flee. Inside her vehicle, the weapon, spent shell casings, a blonde wig, and temporary paper plates. This wasn't chaos. This was preparation.
Rihanna. So Rihanna did a little interview. She spoke on how ASAP Rocky has changed her life for the better. She said, "I stopped going to parties and clubs at 25. When ASAP Rocky and I got closer, his way of life made me want to change a lot about myself and focus more of my energy on my business. We were just friends back then. But he changed a lot about me. Now I prefer to go to work and come back home to my kids or stay home, waiting for my man to come home. If we want to party, we do it as a family. It's just family and business for me right now," says Rihanna. "If we want to party, we do it as a family. It's just family and business for me right now," quotes Riri, bad girl Riri. And so when I hear and I see streamers going live with OnlyFans models, and they're being asked questions about certain activities that have happened within the Rocky house. We just report the news. She said that she just spoke to him a few days ago. ASAP Rocky, allegedly. And Rihanna said she at home, barefoot and pregnant, cooking and cleaning, ain't even got time to go get her wig done. That's why she came to court with that crease from the scrunchie in the wig, and she had that big crease across the back. She had a stiff wig. She ain't got time to go get her hair done these days. Rocky got her in the house, not coming outside, focusing on work, while he out here still allegedly parlaying with OnlyFans models. Because remember, there was a little tape of him that's probably still up on X right now that you can see. It's long and skinny of him skiing with a snow bunny, hopping with a snow bunny. I don't know. Y'all believe that? Now, a lot of people say they don't believe it because men do it all the time. You'll be shocked because of how nasty it is. Men cheat based off of how nasty a woman will get, how far she will go. And there's probably certain things that Riri just won't do. She can't do. She got 2 children under the age of 3.
Calculated, premeditated, as the DA would later confirm. And yet, almost immediately, the narrative locked in: unstable individual, social media obsession, religious rants, erratic behavior, case closed. But Rocky, according to what's being said, isn't buying that. This wasn't a breakdown. This was an operation. It's a heavy claim, but when you line up the details, the questions start stacking. A 2,500-mile drive across states. A disguise ready before arrival. Extra ammunition. A targeted location. And no hesitation in execution. That's not chaos. That's planning. Then comes the part that's left people even more unsettled. The bail. Initially set at $10.2 million, the highest in Los Angeles County history for a case where no one was physically harmed. A number that signaled extreme danger. High risk, something serious. And then, just 1 week later, it drops. Dramatically. Down to $1.8 million. No new evidence presented. No major update. No shift in charges. Just a quiet reduction. Minimal coverage. No clear explanation. Rihanna, as it's being reported, reacted strongly to that moment. When we saw that, we knew something wasn't right.
Rihanna. There's an energy trying to literally throw a ray of, what is it? A ray of force at me to push me down. I don't want you, and you don't go there. And you know what? God's judgment is going to be overwhelming against you when he grabs you and throws you down. I've already seen it. You saw Rihanna. You saw her picture. She has a very big forehead and an ugly, ugly nose. That's God's judgment on her. I keep telling her to stop harassing me. To stop harassing me. And she keeps doing it. She keeps harassing me. And I already bought stock in Ulta, and I have staked in Ulta. So now those energies can't harass me when I go into Ulta anymore.
Because bail isn't just a number, it's a message. It reflects how the system views the threat. So what changed? And more importantly, who benefits from that change? That's where the story starts to widen. Because around the same time, another narrative was quietly resurfacing, one that had nothing to do with Beverly Hills, but everything to do with power. The Epstein files. Millions of pages released. Names, tips, unverified leads, fragments of a much larger picture. Among them, an anonymous mention of a major figure connected to the music industry. No charges, no confirmation, but enough to spark attention. And for those paying close attention, the timing felt uncomfortable. Because Rihanna isn't just another celebrity. She's been inside the system for over 2 decades. Signed young, elevated fast, present in rooms most people never see, around people most never meet. She knows the timelines, the connections, the overlaps. And according to what's now being suggested, that knowledge might carry weight, especially in a moment where investigators are revisiting old networks, old names, old stories. People think these things are separate, she allegedly said. They're not. It's a statement that doesn't confirm anything, but it doesn't dismiss it either. And then comes the decision that shocked even her own fan base. The very next day after the attack, she leaves. No press conference, no public reassurance, no return to routine. Just a private jet, family packed, destination undisclosed, gone. And she hasn't come back. Now think about that. If this was truly just an isolated incident, a single unstable person acting alone, the response is usually control. Increased security, reinforced protection, staying in place, not disappearing. You don't run unless you believe the threat isn't over. And that's exactly what Rocky is now hinting at. That wasn't the end, that was a message. A message sent loud enough to be heard, but controlled enough to be explained away. And if that's the case, then this story isn't about what happened on March 8th. It's about why it happened, and who wanted it to happen.
It happened because when I got with my girl and started building the family, I ain't really have time to kick it with the homies as much. That's why I said just a second ago, I appreciate my brothers who's still here, who's still down, because they understand that and they respect that. They really genuinely happy for it, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's just I ain't trying to be no role model. I'm really just doing me. I'm happy and I be trying to protect that peace. People think I'm trying to be mysterious or mystique. Nah, I know that when you on Front Street about nah, bro, you gotta protect your peace, protect your heart. If something is real, and for niggas who ain't really there for you and really got that real love for you, they not gonna understand that. They gonna look at it like your success is their demise.
He is the #1 suspect.
And just when it seemed like the story couldn't get any darker, it did. Because once you move past the headlines, past the fan narrative, past the quick arrest and the quiet bail reduction, you start to see something else forming underneath. A pattern. One that doesn't begin with a shooting, but long before it. Because Ivana Ortiz didn't just appear out of nowhere. Months before the attack, her digital footprint was already raising alarms. Videos, rants, direct mentions of Rihanna. Accusations that didn't fully make sense, mixed with religious language, paranoia, and fixation. On the surface, it painted a clear picture: instability. And that's exactly why many stopped looking deeper. But here's what complicates that narrative. For months before the shooting, Ortiz filed a lawsuit. Not against Rihanna, against Live Nation. She attempted to block a concert, claiming it would cause her harm. The case was dismissed quickly. No major coverage, no follow-up. Just another strange filing that went unnoticed. Until now. Because Live Nation isn't just any company. It's one of the most powerful forces in the global music industry, deeply connected to touring, promotion, and artist management. And more importantly, tied into the same network that has been linked, discussed, and questioned in multiple ongoing investigations, including those involving Roc Nation, including those connected to names now being revisited in resurfaced files. And suddenly, that random lawsuit doesn't feel so random anymore. Now combine that with what Rihanna and Rocky are allegedly implying. This wasn't just her. That statement alone has split the internet. Because if Ortiz wasn't acting alone, then who is she connected to? Was she influenced? Directed? Or simply used? There's a theory, one that's been circulating quietly but persistently, that the industry has, in the past, leaned on individuals with unstable public profiles to carry out actions that can later be dismissed. A built-in explanation. A convenient ending. Crazy person. Case closed. It's a theory that's impossible to confirm, but difficult to ignore when the pieces start aligning. And then there's the timeline. January 30th, massive document released tied to Epstein. March 3rd, confirmation that certain names are being reviewed. March 8th, shots fired at Rihanna's home. 5 days. That's all it took. Coincidence? Maybe, but as Rocky reportedly said, timing like that doesn't just happen. And if you follow that line of thinking, if you assume for a moment that timing does matter, then the focus shifts again. Back to Rihanna. Not just as a target, but as a variable, because of where she's been, who she's been around, what she might know. For over 20 years, she's moved through spaces that most never even hear about. Private events, closed-door meetings, industry gatherings where power isn't just visible, it's controlled. She's seen the rise of empires, and the silence that protects them. So when her name begins circulating, not in headlines, but in conversations tied to investigations, testimonies, and potential witnesses, it changes her position. She's no longer just an artist. She becomes a risk. And if that's the case, then what happened on March 8th starts to look less like an attack, and more like a signal, a controlled escalation. Something loud enough to be felt, but deniable enough to be managed. Rocky's alleged reaction adds another layer. Because while the public saw silence, behind the scenes, there are reports he reached out, spoke to close contacts, and received warnings. Not confirmations. Warnings. Take her out of there. Don't wait. Don't assume it's over. And that's exactly what he did. Within hours, the decision was made. No delay. No hesitation. They left. And since then, nothing. No updates. No appearances. No reassurance to fans. Just absence. Which, in situations like this, speaks louder than words. Meanwhile, other voices have chosen a different approach. 50 Cent, someone who has historically been vocal, especially when it comes to defending Rihanna, has remained publicly silent on this specific incident. Unusual, but not entirely unexpected. Because instead of posting, reacting, or calling things out directly, he's been focusing on something else entirely. Producing documentaries. Stories that don't name names, but don't need to. Letting the audience connect dots instead of drawing them explicitly. It's a different kind of response. One that suggests awareness, without exposure. Because in a landscape like this, saying too much can cost everything. And others have learned that the hard way. Names like Cat Williams, Corey Feldman, Rose McGowan. Individuals who spoke and faced consequences. Careers shifted. Reputations questioned. Voices minimized. So maybe silence isn't avoidance. Maybe it's strategy. And that brings us back to the present. To the unanswered questions. Because despite everything, the arrest, the evidence, the official statements, the core mystery remains untouched. Why Rihanna? Why no? And why does every explanation feel incomplete? Two major theories continue to dominate the conversation. The first, personal. ASAP Rocky's past conflict with A$AP Rocky. A case involving alleged gunfire, legal battles, and unresolved tension. Even though Rocky was acquitted, some believe that chapter isn't fully closed. Could this be retaliation? A delayed response? Possibly. But it doesn't explain everything. The planning, the timing, the broader connections. Which leads to the second theory, the one gaining the most traction. That Rihanna, knowingly or unknowingly, became entangled in something much larger than herself. Something tied to power, to information, to systems that don't operate in public view. And if that's true, then what happened wasn't random. It wasn't isolated. It was intentional. A moment designed to send a message without starting a war. And the most chilling part? According to what's being said, that message was received. Loud and clear. Because Rihanna didn't stay. She didn't fight back publicly. She didn't dismiss it. She left. And sometimes, that tells you everything you need to know. And if you thought that was the end of it, it wasn't. Because what happens after an event like this often matters more than the event itself. And right now, everything about what followed feels controlled, carefully managed,